everybody. So I'm back for another review of Love and Marriage Huntsville, Season 6, Episode 19, Town Hall Downfall. I just want to thank everybody who has subscribed to the channel. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're watching this. And I just appreciate all of your support. So I just want to make sure I put that out there. All right. So this was an episode where everybody, damn near everybody, was on my fucking nerves the whole episode. Just doing fuck shit after fuck shit after fuck shit after fuck shit. Okay, so Mel and Marsau. Marsau was saying that I want you and Tisha to be in a good space, so on and so forth. Then Mel was like, well, your actions don't say that. And we know they don't. But Mel got to call him out because he will be on that bullshit for as long as you let him. So then Mel gets on him taking jabs. She was like, you took a jab at my business. That's why I'm meeting up with you. And in a small town, what people say or what people hear matters. Okay? And Mel has every right to protect her name, especially on this show. Okay? From that bullshit that Marsau is constantly doing. So he says, well, in my opinion can't ever be stated without somebody accusing me of throwing jabs. Boo, you are throwing jabs. Cut it out. So Mel was like, first of all, those social media awards, he was like, back in 2019. She was like, no, back in 2020. It doesn't matter when it was. This show hasn't been on but for a few years. You did it. It's there. It's on the internet and it's fucked up. Okay? And she was like, it wasn't between me and Tisha. It was basically between her and him. And then he said, well, in my opinion, look, a t-shirt business ain't really doing nothing in business. Mel was like, see, those are the jabs I'm talking about. And you can't ever own it. You throwing them. So then she starts squaring up though. I got to give it to her. And was like, well, Tisha sells t-shirts. And don't you sell t-shirts? Baby, she was not here for the fuck shit. Don't come for none of Mel's business. She don't care what you value. And he was like, yeah. And we went bankrupt a year later. He was like, and you've been bankrupt too. Bitch, let me tell you something. I'm calling Marsau a bitch. Mel got him, got his ass straight, okay? She said, no. I got a divorce and my ex wasn't about to leave me with a bunch of debt. So yes, I filed for bankruptcy. She said, you've never been divorced. So when you filed bankruptcy, it was because your finances weren't together. I said, huh? Don't do it. You don't want to do that. Okay, you ain't ready for that. So then she said, did you cut a check? He was like, cut what check? She was like, for the Black Expo. He was like, I mean, I told y'all I wouldn't participate unless, she was like, I told y'all I wouldn't participate unless I was being paid. But it seems like y'all cut y'allselves a check. I was like, oh, shit now. So she was like, you were mad at me about the expo. And at the end of the day, I could have said from the gate, I didn't want to be a part of it because the people doing it have a $5 million fraud lawsuit against them. I said, well, damn. Marsau, first of all, I don't think your finances are straight just for the fact that you insisted on doing this scene. Or your arrogance is unbelievable. Let's be clear, Marsau. Mel is not Tisha. Your mouth wrote a check that your ass could not cash, okay? And we all watched it go down. So then he said, if she would have just said that, he would have respected that. No, you would not have. Like, what are you talking about, sir? Because when she brought that up into those comeback group meetings about the expo, y'all didn't respect it. That's why she didn't participate. So then this son of a bitch was like, I honestly don't even know what you do for a living, Mel, and I still don't know what you do. And then he was like, for us to move forward, what do I need? To agree with you? You know damn well Mel wasn't asking that. She wanted you to own up to your lies, baby. Okay? So then Mel said, first of all, don't limit my business acumen to e-commerce. And he was like, well, what other business do you have? And, you know, she did the head cock like, are you kidding me? She said, you were in business with me and my ex, but you don't know what I do? Then she was like, I'm in property preservation, the same business I put you in. And that's what kills me, Marsau. Like, I think Marsau has gotten used to some people just ignoring his bullshit or like just not saying anything to not put up with it, like Tisha. To the point where he actually thought that was not going to get the reaction that he deserved. Then he like acts like they haven't had this big fight. outside outside a coffee shop, and he tells her about the town hall, and Mel was in his face, and she was like, "You don't value my business acumen or know what I do, but now you value my feedback." I said, "Well," and I was thinking to myself, Marcel, just cut it out because you're trying to do a whole lot, a whole lot of. Shout out to Terry K. A whole lot of about nothing. So Marcel, you tried it. You came off exactly as you are, a straight asshole who gets off of coming for women, and that's bitch made shit. Tiffany and Lou, moving on. I give less than a fuck about them. I'm just being honest. They're taking the baby to the park. We don't care. We don't care. We could have done without this. I'm sorry. I was not all broken up about Lou missing. I don't care. I just don't care. Nevertheless, so there's something about their relationship to me. I don't care that they're married. That is just fake and disingenuous. I mean, as far back as them even coming on the show, trying to be in other people's business about what their marriages should look like, what they should be doing, and all this other stuff, right? Um, then the baby started crying, and in her typical bitchy behavior, she looks at Lou and says, the baby says, well, since daddy hasn't been home, he can set up the picnic. Well, bitch, that's what I expected him to do anyway. You holding a baby. Like, cut it out. Like, I just don't get it. So she says that he said that Ace was going to slow her down. And in truth and in reality, he slows everything down. This is why, first of all, it's not simply that I don't already like Tiffany. Okay? It's not that. It's not that. But what y'all aren't going to do is pretend like Tiffany has never had a child. She's never been married. And Tiffany, you're not going to mind fuck us into pretending like, oh, because it's been several years or whatever, it's different for you, this, that, and the other. You knew what the fuck came with having a baby. Hell, you only had one until this one. So so cut it out. Cut it out. All right? So she was telling us how she was in a rocking chair crying for no reason. Well, she's telling Lou this. And then she was like, she never thought postpartum would happen to her, even though it happens to a lot of moms. She was like, I'm stressed. And he was like, well, why are you stressed? She was like, because I have so much laundry to do, the dishes, I have to prepare transportation. And at the end of the day, I still feel like I did nothing. And Lou was kind of like, well, and he didn't finish his sentence, but I was like, yeah, those are things people have to do regardless. They have to do those things even when your baby isn't small. And I'm not saying that's not overwhelming to new mothers. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that can't be overwhelming to a mother. I'm saying Tiffany seems like, I can't tell somebody that they are depressed. Okay? I can't tell somebody that they are depressed. But a lot of what she was saying sounds like she has diagnosed herself. And she is saying that as soon as she had the baby, Lewis was gone. And I feel like her and Lewis were not on the same page with this baby. He was not crazy about having one. And she came off like she expected to have the baby. And then Lewis was supposed to be just, I don't know, sitting at home taking care of it. Like, what is going through your brain, sis? Like, what the fuck at your age? What the hell? So the fact that she assumed their lives would be the same as before Ace, and this is why I just feel like Tiffany read something on the internet about postpartum and decided she regurgitate that on TV to get our sympathies. I really don't feel like that's what's happening right now. I don't. And if I'm wrong, I will come back and say it, okay? So, however, I'm sitting up here like, you assumed your lives would be the same as before the baby. Why? Okay? Bitch, you've had a child before this. You know a baby changes everything. Hell, I don't have any kids, and I know that. You saying you had a fantasy like you're a 20-year-old who got married early and had a baby. You've been married before. You've had a child before. This is your second husband and your second baby. So what fantasy were you basing that on? Like, what we're not going to do is, you're not going to play the audience, or, well, maybe you can play Lou like that. But we are not stupid. Okay, cut it out. So she said she feels like she has something to lose this time. It's different from the last. Of course, it's different from the last time. But any woman who's had a child understands what's involved in it. Okay? Like, cut it the fuck out. And so he's been working and not being home and going on the road as a sports coach, whatever. He's going to have to make money, Tiffany. And we don't know what you do for a living outside of this show and being in other people's business and doing fuck shit. Nobody knows what the fuck you do. And you have not tried to clear that up. Y'all need money. And a baby costs. And y'all have two other children. Like, cut it out. Cut it the fuck out. And then I'm gonna tell you what pissed me off when she brought up his absentee father and weaponized it as a way of guilting him into staying home. Tiffany, you're a bitch. First of all, that's hurtful to anybody to not have a father. And then you go, well, do you want your son to feel that way? He was like, the bottom line is I wasn't hurt about my father not being there when I was a baby. Facts. Ever heard of infantile amnesia? Okay, yeah. People get older and they don't remember that shit. Okay, so cut it the fuck out. The main person you need is your mama when you first born. Okay, let's be real. And the mother needs help from the father. I'm not saying that, but Tiffany, I don't see it for you. I don't see it. Anyway, so she just keeps. I feel like she's trying to use depression into keeping him home, and I'm not here for it. She performs for the camera, and then she brings up how he didn't want the baby, and I'm like. Now, I don't believe anybody's life is a mistake, because I don't want this to be misunderstood. I don't even care if you didn't get pregnant on purpose or wasn't planning for it. It doesn't matter how you get here. I don't believe anybody's life is a mistake. That being said, so this is not about the child in and of himself. However, the fact that you said you knew he didn't want the baby, and then when the baby was there, he was gone. I feel like you were using this baby to get something from Lou that you weren't getting. Maybe it's attention, because it seems like attention is never enough for you. That's why you do fuck shit to constantly get attention, and it's ridiculous. Moving on. So the Black Expo Town Hall was a hot ass mess, like every other comeback meet and group, except this time Stormy and Courtney are there. It was a mess like anything Marsau and Tisha lead, because they don't know how to put shit together, including 2 and 2. To equal 4. Anyway, so Kimmy set up the meeting for feedback. Even though Kimmy was one of the last people to show up to her own meeting. All right. This shit is so ridiculous. So Tisha and Marsau may take things personally, so that's why Kimmy decided to set it up. They walked in, Courtney and Stormy walked in. Courtney, dapped Marsau up if Marsau tried to speak to him. And he was like, well, Courtney didn't speak to me. And I'm like, what did you expect? He doesn't owe you shit. The last time he showed up at Black unannounced, and it's because you was fucking with his wife and you were fucking with her. Period. So anyway, Tiffany's old messy ass shows up, and Maurice asks, who else are we waiting on? And she says, well, Mel will probably be here. And honestly, I was thinking to myself, bitch, why would she come? After they had that fight. But I guess, her and Marsau managed to, get something together. And Mel did have plenty of thoughts. Okay, and they have a lot they can learn from Mel. All right. Then he starts talking about his meetup with Mel. What did I tell y'all? Mel is that fucking Jenga piece. Mel always ends up being the topic of conversation, whether she's in the room, left the room, about to go in the room, leaving the room. Like, she is always the topic of their conversation. Okay, so he starts talking about their meet up around her feelings about him running his mouth too damn much. And Marsau said in terms of the expo that she has only been able to sell products because she's on this reality show. I'm sure reality shows do help. We've seen them help. But let's not act like everybody who's on a reality show is helped with their business by being on the show. So she has to know what she's doing. We have seen time and time again people fail with makeup lines, with clothing lines, with t-shirt lines, with hat lines. Like, we have seen people fail, and Mel's businesses just keep growing. If she's not doing e-commerce shirts, then she's doing a whole ass fashion line, because I follow her on Instagram. She's doing skincare. She's still doing property preservation. All of these things we've seen her actually do on the show, and Mel's the only one from the show that I even follow. So I know it goes both ways. So cut it out. Cut it the fuck out. And you do know, because you seem like the kind that would be stalking, what she does. We've seen people's products fail on reality TV, so let's not play. Did y'all catch Martell's face when he was talking about Melody? I caught it because he was looking bad. And I said, how, Sway? You and your feelings over Mel after you called your then wife and mother of your children a hoe on TV? Yeah, I remember that. So pull back. So he says and continues to throw them jabs at Mel. I'm talking about Marsau now. Was talking about in terms of e-commerce, and he said she was only able to sell t-shirts because of the platform, and it would not have been able to do it before this. Maybe. Hell, maybe she would have still been, trying to fix her marriage with Martell had it not been for the country watching and having an opinion on it. There are lots of things, but the bottom line is that's what happened. This is what she's doing with it. And why would you expose your life, your kids, your personal business on TV and not make no money for it? Don't pull it, Marsau. Don't pull it. Okay? So, and then he compares it to Stormy of all people and was like, well, it's not like somebody like Stormy who was selling products before the show. So Stormy doesn't say anything, which I'm sure she probably enjoyed it digging Mel. But my thing is, motherfucker, like, are you kidding me right now? One, we know you don't like Stormy. Two, you were badgering her for $100 after she came and helped for whatever that sorry ass expo was, which was a waste of everybody's damn time. And then you try to put Mel and Stormy against each other in this conversation. How about you compare what Mel does to what you apparently think you're doing that is so great? Like, cut it out. Don't pull it. Don't pull it with me. Don't pull it. All right? Do you think that you could have had Black patronized the way it's been and built that without this show and that money to help finance it? Even if it wasn't a whole lot, it was probably better than what you was grossing. So why are you acting like Mel and Martell pitching this show, the show getting picked up by OWN, like did not help y'all in y'all's business and adding a source of revenue for y'all? And why is Mel a subject of conversation? Is she even there? For people who have such a problem with Mel, y'all sure don't have a problem talking about her. Even when the shit you talking about, you are clearly in the wrong for. It's that jingle piece. You pull Mel out, all this shit will fall apart. All right. And yeah, anyway, so Martell said, do you think if you weren't doing something before this platform, he's asking Marsau, that it's not as relevant? Marsau said no. But yeah, that's the truth. And so Martell goes, well, that's true for you too. If that's the case, he was like, I admitted that in the meeting. You sound dumb. You sound dumb. Oh, I only had relevance before this show. Like, you sound dumb trying to read somebody and take a dig at them and throw a jab at them for exactly what you're saying you benefited from too. So why are you throwing jabs then? You still look stupid. Anyway, so Mel walks into everybody talking about her again. Okay? See, when Mel had an issue with Marsau, she contacted Marsau and they went and sat down. Okay? Now, this is where shit starts to pick up even more. So she said, he was like, no, me and Mel talked and I apologized. And Mel said, yes, he did apologize. It took a while, but he did apologize. He did the act of apologizing. Anyway, he couldn't even look her in her eye. And neither could Tisha. Okay? And so whenever people start acting funny like that with you, there's some bullshit somewhere. So as Mel was talking and came in with all these golden ticket ideas to help them, Tisha and Marsau won't even make eye contact with her. And Tisha, you could tell, was irritable on her face. She had that black girl, I don't like you look. And I say black girl because that's how we look at people when we don't like them. Okay. And then was only willing to look at Tiffany in terms of conversation. When Tiffany said something, then Tisha looked her in her eye and acknowledged her. And that's that bitchy shit people will do to you. Particularly when you have it going on and they do not. And Mel has it going on and Tisha doesn't. And Tisha's threatened by I'm going to go a little bit further with that in a second. So anyway, so Stormy pointed out, like, I think there could have been more motivation. She was like, because everybody doesn't start with money. So sometimes the mindset is necessary. And Mel agreed with her, despite the fact that Stormy acted like she was mad that Mel was agreeing with her. Like, it's just dumb, ignorant shit. I hate it. And she was basically, and Mel supported her point. She was like, yeah, I think you do need workshops. Like, say, hey, this is a good attorney. This is a good CPA. And then have the session ended, like, everybody like, hey, this is how you do it, so on and so forth. Because all of that is necessary. And the fact that Stormy and Mel both know what it's like not to have always the funds up front is something that a lot of entrepreneurs need. And that's why I've never been into this whole everybody should get their own business. Well, look, everybody can't be a business owner. And I ain't gonna even say a 9 to 5 because people work more hours than 9 to 5 just to make ends meet nowadays. But everybody can't find money up front. Everybody's not meant to run a business. And quite frankly, capitalism can't exist without people being impoverished and other people making things. So they don't even make loans available for businesses in that way. Facts. Anyway, so like I said, Stormy looked like she was mad at Mel for agreeing. Bitch, moving on. Then Marsau, that's why I said everybody on my, almost everybody on this episode was on my damn nerves. So then Marsau jumps in and says, motivation is great, but people need nuts and bolts. And she was like, that's not what I was saying. And no, that wasn't what Stormy was saying. He said, I know, I used the word motivation. She was like, yeah, but you were pointing at me. So you were clearly referring her idea. Okay, whatever. So then Marsau does what Marsau does and says, I would love to hear what Courtney's wife has to say. After Stormy pointed out that he was ignoring her ideas. Mel starts snickering, so does Tiffany, and I think Martell did too. And I don't think they were laughing at Stormy. I just think it was one of those laughs when it's like, this motherfucker never fails. He just keeps doing wild shit like this. Like sometimes it gets so crazy that all you can do is shake your head and laugh. Anyway, that shit was so intentionally disrespectful, Marsau. It's unbelievable. It really is. And it wasn't necessary. But Tisha, your attitude at this meeting makes me think you and Marsau have a lot more in common than I previously thought. Okay? Stormy, you look a hot ass mushroom Donna Summer fucking mess in that confessional, and I want you to stop. Okay? I can't. I can never see myself buying hair products from you because your hair always looks a hot ass mess or it looks very basic. Okay? And you can say, oh, well, I don't like your hair. Well, it don't matter. I ain't trying to sell you no hair products. Okay? So it don't matter. However, Mel can sell me hair products because her hair is on motherfucking point. Tisha can sell me some skincare stuff because her skin is on point. But Stormy, I don't see it. I don't see it for you. Anyway, so Courtney then says, you know what? Tisha should be leading this meeting. Because he knows for a fact that Tisha is more organized than Marsau. And he was like, you all over the place. And he knew exactly what to do to get under Marsau's skin. And I'm going to tell you what. I like that Courtney didn't take a cheap shot at Tisha to get to Marsau. Instead, he gave her a compliment to get at him. And what the fuck does that say about you, Marsau? That when somebody praises your wife, you start feeling the way. Anyway, so Kimmy called Marsau catty in the confessional, and Stormy called him sassy. For a sexist, you getting played real hard to the left, made to look like a female on TV, Marsau, so you need to go back to the drawing board, hun. Anyway, so then he said, well, look, he was basically telling Kimmy, I got all A's in school. I was an all A's student. So I know I can figure the expo out. And Kimmy was like, so was I. And he was like, well, it meant something to me. I was like, you are a whole bitch. You were trying to be this rough, rugged, rude man. And you coming off as a whole bitch. Like more than usual. Like, bruh, no. So then Stormy was like, I don't even know why I came. She's in the confessional. This was a waste of time. And she looked at Courtney in the confessional and he was... and he looks at her and goes, I just came because you invited me. I said, well then. Anyway, so Stormy, you were dumb to show up. Especially after the way he disrespected you at that expo, asking for that dumbass $100. And your husband had already went to Black, showed up unannounced, and got him together. I wouldn't have even paid them any attention, okay? Dust, all right? All of them. All you had to say was, I will never work with that motherfucker again, okay? And give him your ass to kiss. But no, you wanted a scene. You wanted to be seen on reality TV. You keep trying to force yourself on us, and we're not here for it, okay? But no, she wants, like I said, she wants to be in multiple scenes on this show and probably is doing her business, honestly, a disservice. And it seems like her business was off to a good start in Huntsville. Apparently people in Huntsville liked it. I'm sure in Alabama or wherever else she was selling. And granted, it can be good advertising, but I don't like you, Stormy. I wouldn't buy anything from you. I wouldn't. All right? And I can tell Mel tried to be nice and said, you know, that hopefully by the next time, she was like, you all will be more organized. So then I want to participate and more streamlined. And then Tisha, who hadn't been saying nothing the whole meeting, goes, you thought it wasn't organized? And Mel was like, yes. Parts of it, a lot of it. Tisha started getting rah-rah on Mel with an attitude. And Mel is walking, taking her plate to the garbage. I don't know why that plate reminded me of like vacation Bible school, like when you were at church and you had the paper plates and stuff. I don't even know why I did that. But anyway, Mel took her plate to the garbage can and says, "Oh no, honey, you're not about to downplay my ideas." She was like, Tisha was receptive to everybody smiling, seemed to accept whatever they had to say until I said something. I can tell you right now, and this is what I'm talking about. Tisha holds on to shit, and I'm sure she's holding on to other shit from her relationship with Mel. But I'm gonna tell you right now, Tisha, you were coming off like a straight hater. Like you didn't like that Mel knew more than you did about this, and you weren't willing to learn. And it seems to me that you were mad that she was also talking to Marsau at a coffee shop. And I do think you're a very insecure woman when it comes to him, and I don't know why, because I don't know anybody that would want him, and we know Mel sure wouldn't. But I'm sure Marsau went home and told Tisha the way he remixes stories, just like he tried to make it sound like the Fletchers was overdoing it. No, that's what the fuck you said. And probably went on and said, well, she said you were going to leave my sorry, lying, manipulative ass, cheating, this and the other. You know, she's probably embarrassed. I think Tisha is embarrassed and angry because she thinks Mel knows something about her marriage that would be potentially publicly embarrassing to her. And she just doesn't want Mel to have a one-up on her. I don't necessarily know that Mel even sees it like that, especially considering her husband had a baby on her. She went through a very public divorce. And she had said, I don't think she was being fake when she said it, that my issues with Tisha really come from Marsau. Like, but see, Tisha, you going to be one of the people, the blind, leading the blind, they both fall in the ditch, you and Marsau. But anyway, so Stormy calls him a bitch. He says, I am a bitch. And I was like, I agree, Marsau, you are a bitch. Anyway, so Maurice jumps in and asks Stormy, well, why is she a bitch? First of all, you grown-ass man, stop addressing women. And Stormy goes, no, ask him. He the one that just said he was a bitch. And your brother is a bitch. And Maurice, you a bitch, okay? While we added the way your wife feels pressure to, like, have sex with you, despite the fact that she just got done fighting breast cancer. You need to be grateful that she still has her life. And I know my mother is dealing with, you know, transfusions, and this is probably going to be another 7 months or so. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And so it's just, I don't know, that grinds my gears. Anyway, when I see him act like that. So Courtney was like, in the confessional, look, Marsau talks too much, especially when it comes to women. Stormy and Courtney get up to leave. Marsau says, goodbye, Mr. and Mrs. Steele. And that's not Courtney's last name. And he was basically doing that to say Stormy, you know, has control of him. And Stormy was like, he's trying to take a dig. But that's okay. Because Courtney don't care either way. And Courtney doesn't. Because he's not insecure like that. And let me tell you something, Courtney, you growing on me. Because I just thought you had a weird look. I ain't really was checking for you or your wife. But you're growing on me because you don't get overly involved. But you make sure you handle your business and protect your wife and do what you're supposed to do. And I appreciate that. I still don't like Stormy or Marsau, so whatever. So Kimmy and Nell meet up. I already knew this looked like bullshit, and it was bullshit. So Kimmy's blue pinstripe dress, that was cute, right? It was cute. So Kimmy starts with pleasantries like she usually does. And honestly, it really seemed like a forced conversation. It did. I'm not here for Nell. I'm not here for Nell. I'm not. So Kimmy is nice, but it seemed like they were having a hard time even having a conversation. On camera, Kimmy invited her because she said, I just want to make sure we were okay. And Kimmy had the meeting about the expo. And Kimmy says, look, I know that you all, the Fletchers, you know, felt a way about not being invited to the expo. And she said that she just didn't feel that Nell needed to be invited to that particular town hall meeting. And I was like, but why are y'all meeting up about this? Like, I mean, did Nell just hear about the meeting? Whatever. This is what I'm thinking. And I guess, and she makes the point that it's because it was about feedback for the people that were actually there. And Kimmy brings up how small Huntsville is, which I guess is an indicator that she may have heard that Nell had problems with not being invited to the town hall, so on and so forth. I'm having a hard time, though, understanding why Nell is so caught up in not being invited to the Black Expo that has clearly had multiple witnesses to the fact that it was a total and complete disaster. So for somebody you claim you've been in business all these decades and you have all this year of experience and stuff, like, it just seems like the juice is not worth the squeeze in this case. It's not, like, I don't know what you're trying to prove. Fuck them. That's why they failed. Next time y'all call me, won't you? Boom. But see, you can't do that because Nell want to be on TV too bad. So, anyway, But once again, that's the reason. That's the reason why she's making a big deal about this, because she wanted another scene. So Kimmy said her goal wasn't for people to come and complain about the expo. It was for people to simply give their feedback. And she goes, Nell goes, wait, I wouldn't have complained. I would have listened. And I felt like that conversation could have gone two ways. Because I initially thought, well, maybe if she would have let Kimmy finish, that wasn't her intention for the town hall, she would have heard that that's all everybody did was complain and fight. Because I was still trying to figure out what had happened. And Nell was like, well, even though I wasn't there, she should have been invited to the meeting. Then she says, well, we've been in North Huntsville longer than any of y'all. And Kimmy followed up with, what does that mean? And I was kind of like, okay, well, anybody can live in a town their whole life. That don't make them no expert. Somebody can come somewhere for 10 years versus somebody who's lived there for 50 and still take over. I mean, Tyler Perry ain't from Atlanta, but right. Okay, so anyway, she said, well, that means we should have been there. Kimmy said, even though it was my meeting, I said, ooh. and so Kimmy was like, her and Tisha already had an issue. And then she said that the more she thought about it and decided that it was best just not for Nell to come. So then I was like, okay, it seems like Kimmy disinvited her. Now, I would feel a way about that because it's like, because I thought Nell was just tripping that, okay, they had something they kept me out of again. But it seems like Kimmy invited her and then pulled it back because she didn't think that was necessary. So that's messy. That is, and it's rude. But Kimmy, you got to give it to Kimmy because she's grown enough to address their issue to her face. Okay, acknowledge that was a mistake and just says, we can agree to disagree about the way it was handled. And then, Nell once again trying out slang that she don't have no business. She was like, well, as they say, we Gucci. And Kimmy took that motherfucking dig. And Kimmy was like, no, I can't afford to be handing out purses to make sure we're good. That was a dig in Stormy for that Destiny purse. Anyway, but okay, girl. So Martell is driving up to meet his business partner, Fred. Martell, it has become abundantly clear to all of us that Mel was not only the brains behind it, she was the money behind it and everything else. Period. Hard stop. And for you to still be in business, I think is a waste. But maybe it's hard for you to go into what you were originally trained as an educator after you've talked shit about teachers and basically acting like we don't have any value when you try to constantly say to Mel, well, I took you out the class from all that other shit. Fuck you. Anyway, so they're breaking ground. It's the first house he's built in some years. Honestly, Martell, I've never seen you build a house on this show. So I hope y'all do more than plant a garden because that's what it looked like your friend Fred was doing. And then, Martell, why are you breaking ground in a white V-neck tee? Like, you don't look like you showed up to work. You look like you drove up to somebody's job, but you don't look like you showed up to work yourself. So essentially, he has made Fred Mel's replacement in his life. He's his business partner. He knows this. And Fred is basically taking up for Martell, particularly once Chris shows up, and making excuses for the way he is. And I'm going to get to that in a second. That's why I say he's like the new Mel. Because Mel, for a second, was doing that. Handling business, letting Martell leech. And that's what it seems like. So he says him and Melody filed bankruptcy and that messed up his credit. But my thing is Mel has a whole big-ass house for her and her kids. So Martell, please take some responsibility for the poor way you handled your finances. Like the fact that you were renting a house as big as Chris Fletcher has allowed you. And we don't even know. He could be behind in his rent. Anyway. But Martell, take some responsibility. Cut it out. So Martell says, well, why is Chris? So Chris Fletcher shows up. He goes, Chris, why are you showing up with your nutsack and those tight-ass pants? And Chris was like, well, I learned from you. I said, whoop. I don't know. Chris tickles me. So anyway, he asked him, and doesn't Chris give y'all Denzel tease? He doesn't look like Denzel Washington, but something about him reminds you of Denzel Washington, because I would never want to disrespect Denzel Washington and his finest, but something about him gives me Denzel tease. Anyway, so he comes up to Martella and he, exchanges, highs, hellos, and goes, well, when are you moving? Because Martell mentions, he was like, so when do you expect this house to be done? Chris asked him, and he was like, Built by September, sold by September. He said, okay. So I'll be able to list it. This is a renter's market, or you can rent the house. He said, it's a renter's market. Speaking of renters, the owner of these I said, how many times has Chris, Chris has had this conversation multiple times, twice now on camera. He's had this conversation multiple times with him in private. So he keeps saying, so Martell goes, well, that's the goal for me to be out this week. Chris says, look, at this point, we are months into this issue. I need Martell to man up and figure it out. And yes, that's what the fuck needs to happen. Somebody needs to be in Martell's life, not making excuses for him. Mel's done, over it, don't need to be bothered with him, his crazy narcissistic behind, okay? I said I'm an armchair psychologist, okay? Anyway, then his friend Fred's country ass keeps jumping in the conversation between Martell and Chris. Those are two men having a discussion who not putting their hands on each other. Why are you in it? Okay? And was like, dang, Chris, I was wondering where you were going with all of this. Why, why you doing? Chris was like, I have a fiduciary responsibility to the owner. Martell's supposed to be out months ago. And I was like, first of all, Fred was already on my nerves because after they said they was going to build the house and sell it by September, so Chris said I should be allowed to list it. He said, so, oh, good, I can list it or whatever. And he was kind of saying it like a joke. And Fred goes, why would you list it? It just was giving real bitch assness to me, and I wasn't here for it. So Chris somehow manages to bring up the dinner with the Fletchers and Marsau, and I'm over this dinner. I don't want to hear nothing else about it, okay? It wasn't that deep. So Chris says Marsau claimed that he didn't know we owned a daycare. And Fred jumps in the conversation and goes, well, I didn't know y'all owned a daycare either. Motherfucker, why are you talking? Why are you talking? Why? Who are you? Where did you come from? And Chris handled it like a man. And he said, okay, but you and I don't have that same kind of relationship. And Fred, at this point, you're giving Marsau. And by you're giving Marsau, I mean you're giving bitch. Okay? And it seems like Martell is kind of your end to being on this show. And as far as I'm concerned, if 5 more people join this cast, all of Huntsville will be on it. And we don't need that. Anyway, it was given Martell has talked shit about Chris Fletcher to Fred. And instead of Fred saying to Martell, like, yeah, man, you need to move your stuff. This is business. This is the way it goes. He's hating Chris for doing his job. And that gives bitch made to me. Chris is a businessman. And Martell is taking advantage of this. He's squatting in someone else's home. And if you know about property and rentals and all this other shit, move your shit. I don't care if you take it to your mama's house. And then you got the nerve to look at Chris Fletcher and say, well, if you bring some trucks and stuff like that. He was like, I can do that. And I was thinking to myself, no, he can do that. Somebody can have his ass removed. Legally. So then he starts going off. And Martell starts going off about the stuff that Chris told him, Marsau said about Mel and Martell's businesses and Skull and how he wasn't a part of it or wasn't a big part of it. And I can understand why Martell is pissed. It's called Sculpt for a reason. Scott's and Holt. All right? But I need you, Martell, to take that same energy to box and move your shit. Okay? I want you to take that same energy and get an apartment or a townhouse, something you can afford that's reasonable. The rest of us do it. Hell, I'm just a school teacher. I have an apartment. I have someplace to live. Anyway, I come from a big family, okay? So don't pull it. And I did not come from a lot of money. So your kids can sleep in the same 2 or 3 rooms when they come and visit, and they still small. You don't need to rent a house that big, especially if you're not going to pay for it. Especially knowing you have a 5th child and a baby mama who is going to come for her child support. Okay? Okay. Anyway, that's all I got to say about Love and Marriage Huntsville. This episode was a mess. I think the only people I could really stomach this episode was like Mel and Chris. Anyway, y'all be sure to like and subscribe. Drop down in the comments. Tell me what you think. Everybody be sure to be respectful to everybody. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.